let's get this underway. Here they come. There's the green flag in the back. You know what happens, folks. It is lights out, and away we go, 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 as Formula 2022 is back, and George Russell makes a great start, and immediately takes to the racing line. Daniel Ricciardo sees a gap opening for past Charles Leclerc, and he probably might. They might go side by side in their Rouge. Alain Alonso and Webber for 2010. They are going to go side by side. Do they make it through? Yes, they do. And Daniel Ricciardo takes second place. Look at Aiden Jackson go around the outside, down the Campbell Straight, I think it is, and straight into P3. He was trying to pass the Williams. I think he's hit Mick Schumacher.
Okay, fantastic start, Aiden. This is a perfect position for us. We can use this clean air, try to catch up to Russell ahead. You getting me? Copy that, I'm on it.
Down the inside of the bus stop though goes Aiden Jackson, and he takes the lead. On board now with Mick Schumacher. And there's the debris ahead. That's Kevin Magnussen, oh my! And we were talking about Haas, and Kevin Magnussen has lost his left front wheel, and he's stopped at the bus stop. That is an immediate deployment of the full safety car then. Well, we were just saying that Haas have been rather disappointing, and this won't improve matters. What happens here? I think he outbrakes himself. Kevin Magnussen, yeah, a long way. Aiden Jackson on the hard tyres, so he made the right call. It was the right call by Audi to bring Jackson in and give him first service.
Mark, the battery's depleting, mate. This might be the kinetic power. We're only going to lose engine power if we carry on. Try and bring it back to the pits, mate. We're going to retire the car. Oh, again with this. Oh, it's dead. For f***'s sake. So sorry, man. I don't know what to say. You were on it. Oh, I can't believe it. No!
So after a long wait in upload terms, we are finally underway for the second half of the 2022 season, and we're back home of the Max Legion for the 2022 Dutch Grand Prix after a very triumphant and spectacular return last year, all in thanks to Max Verstappen's win that sent the place into raptures. It's going to be very difficult for him to repeat this year following an engine component grid penalty dropping him to 14th, and worst case scenario for him following that is of course Charles Leclerc, his championship contender, 11 points behind, starting in third. But if there is one thing we can always say about Verstappen, it's that never count him out of anything. But all the talk so far this weekend has been the surge of form shown from Aiden Jackson. And to nick a very popular quote from recent times, he's locked in. After topping all the sessions bar one, which was of course Q3, where he was beaten to pole by Lando Norris by 0.045. Aiden has been absolutely at one with the circuit, and every expectation is that if he does lead into turn one, expect him to run down the road, with cheers almost rivaling Max's. Almost. Off the track, however, this season appears to be not quite over yet, Aaron, does it? Oh boy, you're not wrong, Chaos, and chaos seems to be the apt word to describe the situation at Audi Sport right now, as the whole of Project Prototype could be coming to a premature end. As sources talk that the Audi Sport technical partnership could create a possible conflict of interest between Audi and Sauber. As you'd probably expect, Sauber would rather reap all the benefits of the Audi takeover deal for 2026, rather than Sport pick up a performance advantage going into 2024, when they're expected to pick up where Project Prototype leaves off and yet participate as an independent team. The story gets even more interesting when you factor in that British tycoon Davidoff Butler, the CEO of Sport's primary contributor Butler Global, sat down with the Beyond the Grid podcast team for the latest episode and spoke at length about Sport's roadmap to F1, which would start at the conclusion of the 2022 season. Davidoff would fund half the constructor fee of $200 million, with the other half covered by a 10% cut of Audi's prize money earned this season, and the rest funded by Sport themselves. Audi incidentally would immediately make this 10% back up because of the new team's entry fee is always shared equally between all the other teams. So Sauber would just have to hand them back to them, and the roadmap for 2026 would continue as normal. Davidoff would then fully buy out some of Project Prototype's personnel contracts, namely Chris Whiteman to keep him on as team principal alongside Deputy Andrea O'Connor, Aiden Jackson, and both race engineers Mark Priestley and Jeff Nelson, and all would join the race base of operations in Huntington. This would make the team 90% complete with only a power unit deal and a second driver to find, meaning they could sign the 2023 Concord agreement and compete next season. Aiden Jackson as a result would be Connorsport's lead driver. However, the only reason he's at Audi in the first place was because of the deal that was struck between them and Mercedes to use their power units at the beginning of the season. Toto Wolff stated in the Friday team principal press conference that he's more than open for Connorsport to keep Aiden on loan, as Hamilton and Russell are still contracted until the end of 2024. But he also said with a smile, he's still ours though. So it's fair to say that Aiden Jackson is quite the hot property right now, and I myself wouldn't factor out Audi trying to have a swoop deal with their own in the near future. Back to the present day, what about the second driver? California man Jamie Chadwick of course will be representing Connorsport in F1 Academy next season, and we know that Hakkinen is out at the end of the year, and that Audi will most likely keep on Nico Hulkenberg as their team ambassador. But with the takeover from Sauber not starting now until January 2024, Nico's only realistic option appears to be a loan out to Haas if they drop Mick Schumacher, which unfortunately for Mick is looking increasingly likely. While Davidoff on the other hand said that's a question for Chris and Andrea. However, those who are recent F1 historians may be familiar with the Butler surname. In 2019, Davidoff's son Devon competed in F3 alongside Jackson. Devon is an interesting character, let's say, but to his credit, at times he would back up his confidence with a win at Spain, for example, while other times would consist of rather questionable driving, which in Austria resulted in a collision between him and Aiden, forcing Jackson to pit. This in turn would switch on Jackson's fightback mode, cutting through the field and back ahead of Butler at a blistering pace, at first catching the eye of then Racing Point team principal Otmar Savner, and in particular Mercedes, who signed him to their young driver academy pretty much instantly. Aiden then of course prevailed in the championship after another spirited fight back from 8th on the grid to 2nd in Abu Dhabi. And he then went to F2 for High Tech GP in 2020, while Devon took the F3 championship at the second attempt, and pretty much more refined in terms of driving. Then in 2021 he made the step up to F2 and finished runner-up to the unbeatable Oscar Piastri. With no F1 seat available, this season he's been performing admirably in IndyCar, among the top 5 in the standings, and even winning the Indy 500. He would qualify for an F1 super license with the points he accumulated in 2019 to 2021. Coincidence? And guess what? The possible new team talk doesn't end there. APX, owned by the former Lotus driver Ruben Cervantes, has inquired about the 2025 entry, and they of course sponsored the F3 Championship leader Joshua Pierce. And Michael Andretti and the Cadillac group could be bagged in together to look at the 2026 slot. We're expecting official bid from them in January. So by 2026, we could be seeing 13 teams and 26 drivers, and all alongside brand new cars and regulations. Wow, that is a tasty prospect none of us can wait for. You and me both, Aaron. Boy, what a prospect. I almost want to go there right now, and I'm sure everyone else does too, but unfortunately, we still have a few years to wait for that. So let's begrudgingly go back to today and take you on a lap around the Zandvoort circuit, which was reintroduced in 2021. All really thanks to the meteoric rise of Max Verstappen, and quite aptly, I think he is the perfect person to take us on a lap on this classic circuit today. world champion, world championship leader, home favourite Max Verstappen on a lap round Zandvoort. You might not even hear me with the cheers of this place. Past turn 1, which is called the Tarzan corner, and on the way to turn 4, one of my favourite turns on the calendar, considering the banking is one of the shorter laps around here. Look at this very fast section, and as you can already tell, the track is very narrow. Overtaking is certainly going to be very difficult. Maybe even for Verstappen today, as he'll start lower down on the grid than this qualifying lap was suggested due to an engine penalty he's carrying into this race. Very fast, very flowing, but now it slows down with the left-hander here into the first DRS zone as we approach pretty much the end of the lap at this point. As we take the right here into a left, and you can look at the sea of orange in the grandstands. It certainly is kind of fever pitch yesterday, and well, this lap was good enough for pole. Of course, Norris, Jackson, and even Charles Leclerc got ahead of him, and Max with this lap, despite his best efforts, takes a 10th place grid penalty. It's short. That's a lap of Zandvoort. Going into this weekend, this frenzied Dutch crowd all were screaming and shouting and singing for Max Verstappen as he looked to increase his championship lead. But now he has a tough task of starting from 14th. His championship leader there, Charles Leclerc, could reel into that. But don't forget the front row with Aiden Jackson and Lando Norris involved. What an unusual race this could turn out to be. Commentary from the Dutch Grand Prix is from Aaron Henwood. Thank you, Chaos. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, settle in, because this could be one of the most unusual races of the season. We've got a very strange grid with many of the top players further down the order than expected. The one outlaw, as Chaos mentioned, Charles Leclerc. Now, if he gets third or higher, third with the fastest lap, Charles Leclerc will then take a 1-point lead going into the next race. But we all know that Max Verstappen can perform miracles from lower on the grid than expected. But the thing is, the Zandvoort circuit is one of the most trickiest for overtaking, as you saw on the onboard lap. It is very, very narrow in a lot of places. Even DRS in the first section seems relatively, kind of useless, to be honest, with the straight being so short. It's one of those that's there as a novelty, and to pretty much kind of fill the quota, not really a requirement, of having more than one DRS zone. The second one is, of course, a more natural overtaking opportunity down the start-finish straight towards the very aptly named Tarzan corner. Not really sure why they called it that one, but it's a very unique name nonetheless. Let's have a look at the grid from the back, and all the penalties galore with it. Zhou Guanyu and Yuki Tsunoda start that on the back of the grid, followed by Pierre Gasly and Sebastian Vettel. Daniel Ricciardo took one, promoted the Williams boys of Latifi and Albert to 17th and 16th, with Lance Stroll just ahead of them. Max Verstappen starts 14th alongside Valtteri Bottas. Mick Schumacher goes from a season best 12th. Can he finally get some points on the board? Carlos Sainz is another big name with a penalty in 11th place. Into the top 10 we go with the second Haas driver, Kevin Magnussen, alongside Lewis Hamilton. The Alpines knock out the following row with 8th and 7th, Alonso ahead of Ocon. Perez is alongside Mika Hakkinen and also took a grid penalty, very unluckily, as he's returning towards the front of the grid. And on the front row, Aiden Jackson takes that distinction. alongside pole man, a very surprising one in Lando Norris. Who would have thought we'd say that at the beginning of the season? McLaren are really starting to come good now. We did suspect that the McLaren at the start of the season being one of the dark horses of the year, considering the car characteristics probably suited them more than any other team. But it's not really happened that way for McLaren so far. It looks to change though today with Lando Norris on pole position. I suppose the other driver to look out for in this situation though would be George Russell. We know how decent the Mercedes was, and they won the Belgium Grand Prix last time out. Probably not naturally, as Aiden Jackson was on another level in the whole weekend, or the race in particular. But that engine failure with the MG UK took him out of the running. Aiden Jackson's been almost virtually unstoppable this weekend though. He's topped every practice session and every qualifying bar the last one. Mika Häkkinen was sitting in third for a time. I think he was even sitting on pole position for a brief moment. But sadly, he had a group penalty as well. And as we said, Audi really are feeling the really Achilles heel of reliability. But as we spoke at the top of the show, this could be the one and only season of Audi until at least 2026, with the impending arrival, possibly, of Connosport as a whole independent outfit for 2023. We know that Aiden Jackson most likely will be a part of that if that does happen. So either way, we will see this man on the grid next year. But who will be his teammate? That would be a very interesting question. Most theorists are pointing towards maybe a chance finally for Devon Butler after having a couple of years getting his feet wet in F2, and then his inaugural year in IndyCar this season, where he became a Indy 500 winner. That's certainly a way to prove your credentials, but that is for another day and another year, really. We're here to still settle the issue of 2022. It was a triumphant return for Max Verstappen to his homeland last year. He's got it all to do today from 14. Here come the flow of red lights. You know what happens. It is lights out and away we go for the Dutch Grand Prix of 2022. Lando Norris gets away really well. Charles Leclerc does as well. Charles Leclerc misses the second. We're going to go 3-1 at turn 1. Oh, I think the Mercedes there. I think the Mercedes made contact with Häkkinen. Who made contact? That was very close. I'd like to see that again. George Russell's made his way up to third. Maybe he's got through unscathed. Häkkinen is under pressure from the Alpine. Look at Mick Schumacher. Mick Schumacher makes his way up to 11th. And he's side by side with Lewis Hamilton of all people. This could be a battle of ages right now. Can Mick hold it in? And he's going to go round. He's still on the inside with the Haas battling Mercedes. He's got ahead. Mick Schumacher is in the points. Oh my goodness. The Haas are on for double points. Mick Schumacher is up to 10th. And will he finally get his first points of the year? He's been probably overdue them. But finally, Haas are showing some of that potential that was rumoured going into this year. And as we said, they've probably been the most disappointing outfit in that regard. Lewis Hamilton is down to 11th behind the Haas. Max Verstappen is battling with Carlos Sainz. We've got a lot of the big hitters down in the middle of the pack, jostling for position. Bottas is 14th, but at the front, it's Lando Norris and the McLaren who leads. Very unusual position for Lando Norris, but of course he already has won a Grand Prix in his career. He won the Austrian Grand Prix of 2021, and Mick Schumacher is down now the inside of Kevin Magnussen. Mick Schumacher is on fire, and he's up to 8th because there's a few drivers in the pits. Häkkinen had damage, as did both AlphaTauris. Gasly is having to wait for Yuki Tsunoda to get his wing changed, and absolute calamities at AlphaTauri. Mika Häkkinen has also suffered. We thought maybe that George Russell hit him into turn 1, rather probably inadvertent more than, to be honest. But, well, poor Mika Häkkinen, he's had a great last couple of races, but now he's got to do it from the back. Now, we know Mika Häkkinen could fight through the field as well. Remember that 1999 Austria Grand Prix when he collided with teammate David Coulthard and pretty much won through the field on his way. I think it was to 4th, but Eddie Irvine ended up being the eventual winner that day. So here's the start from Lando Norris. Pretty clean start. No real worries from Aiden Jackson. He was bogged down a little bit. And Charles Leclerc was going around the outside. Thankfully with Jackson he was able to hold it, but Charles Leclerc is the real winner of the start because he's still within the top 3. And as we said, if he stays there and finishes with the fastest lap, he will overtake the championship lead by a point. Aiden Jackson, well, he was not giving that up. Now, did he understeer into turn 1? I'd like to see that again. I'd like to see what George Russell made at the start. Here's Nico Hulkenberg. And DRS is enabled. They've already crossed the line to start the 3rd racing lap. So Child goes around the outside. Hulkenberg is almost side by side with Jackson. Well, I don't think there's any blame you're going to put on Jackson there. It looks like Russell is the one that probably gets caught out by Leclerc. But look at this start from Mick Schumacher. Absolute genius decision to stay on the hards. And you remember last year, Mick Schumacher and Aiden Jackson teamed up to really kind of block out Lance Stroll, and Mick Schumacher passed both of them around the outside. So Mick Schumacher is definitely a lover of this place. He's down the outside in the banking of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton starting on the hard tyres, so there's obviously a tyre difference or compound difference, and that's what Mick Schumacher took advantage of. But not only that, he passed Kevin Magnussen for 8th. Mick Schumacher is finally on for some points, and we all know that Schumacher's been under the kind of impression that he will not be on the grid next year, which could be very unfortunate in a way. He's had more stints of bad luck than good. The AlphaTauris did get together as Tsunoda outbraked himself into, I think it was Alex Albon here, and here he is. This is lap 3. Lap 3 is just coming to an end very shortly, and Alex Albon is pulling off here. That's a failure for Williams, and another Mercedes engine failure. They've had a lot this year, Mercedes. It's certainly been one of their weaknesses in 2022. And here we are, back to the live action. Lando Norris and Aiden Jackson are racing away at the front, 2 seconds ahead of George Russell. Mick Schumacher, as we said, still in 8th place and leading comfortably ahead of Kevin Magnussen and everyone behind him. Maybe Kevin Magnussen actually could be playing a bit of a team game for Haas here. Schumacher does seem the faster of the two. Finally, oh my goodness, Mick Schumacher in the points. I might turn into a bit of a bias mode here, but I really do hope he can hold on. He has had some bad luck, let's be honest. The Haas has not really been up to it for most points in 2022. Now, that's maybe not altogether the correct statement. They have scored with Kevin Magnussen on 2 or 3 occasions. One of which in Saudi Arabia was actually really well earned by Kevin Magnussen when you think about it, because I think he was at the back, ended up in 10th. But that crazy British Grand Prix gave Kevin Magnussen a podium, which I believe was Haas's first ever podium in Formula 1. No, that wasn't true. That's Aiden Jackson from last year, of course, at Monza. We often do forget that, don't we? No, it's the second podium, because of course Aiden Jackson won the Italian Grand Prix of 2021, and he really looks up to winning this one here. If he does pass Lando Norris, I've got everything crossed for him, because he led the race in Spa and had to drop out, and hopefully that's going to not really happen to him today. And Max Verstappen is now making his move. He's up to 10th and is catching to the back of Lewis Hamilton. Contact inevitable, maybe, perhaps, but let's see. Lewis Hamilton going for a very unusual strategy, being one of the very few cars starting on the hard tyres, and Kevin Magnussen has done his bit, because that gives Schumacher a 1 second lead. He needs to take advantage and go as far down the road as he can, and take advantage of the fact that Hamilton is holding people up on the hard tyres. We've got another bit of a trade behind George Russell, because these two at the front are absolutely racing away comfortably. But Aiden Jackson now has DRS. Will he go down the inside of the turn 1? He absolutely will. He has a bit of a look, but Lando Norris closed the door. That's his prerogative to do so. Jackson's going to take a Max Verstappen wet line and go round and take the lead. Aiden Jackson with another sensational passing manoeuvre, and he takes the lead. And now, to the cheers and the roar of the crowd. Yes, you did hear that right. Listen to this place. They're absolutely in love with Aiden Jackson this weekend. I guess it's one person they can cheer for, because Max Verstappen is kind of stuck in a train. And look at this. Aiden Jackson absolutely adamant to stick to the outside line. He had so much traction coming out of that corner. And as we said in Belgium, that car, that Audi now, is much more improved, and Aiden Jackson really feels in tune with it now, compared to the beginning of the season. He was struggling to keep it in a straight line. It was such a diva. But now it just seems much more planted and much more fine-tuned to Jackson's driving, which is very similar to Verstappen's, if you believe the kind of driving analysis. But I would probably agree with that, to be fair. The man who needs to get a move on here, Charles Leclerc, up to 4th. And, well, we said if he finished 3rd with the fastest lap, he would take the lead in the championship as of now. I think as of now, Max would lead it by about a couple of points, I think. Because Charles is only on for 4th at the moment, as he is pretty much stuck behind George Russell. Now we're looking at Carlos Sainz. And Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton is not exactly cruising up to the back of Mick Schumacher, which is very interesting. But of course, Schumacher is starting on the hard tyres. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. What Mika Hakkinen needs right now is a safety car, because he's down in 18th place, 11 seconds behind Sebastian Vettel. Now, by law of averages, he probably should catch up to the back rather quickly, but he'll have to probably make another pit stop because he's on the medium tyres. I think he started on the medium tyres. Aiden Jackson, is that the... I thought it was the hard tyres, but it's not. Lando Norris is doing a very admirable job of keeping Aiden Jackson in sight. The McLaren certainly looks up for it this weekend. This is probably their strongest weekend by far this season. But of course, as we said, Lando Norris already a race winner in 2021 at the Austrian Grand Prix. It might have been in the Styrian one. I think it was the Austrian one though, because that's where both Red Bulls dropped out with engine failures. Mick Schumacher still in 8th position. You probably could call this his rookie season, because the Haas 2021 car was a write-off, despite the win from Aiden Jackson. Let's be honest, Haas were confined to the back in most circumstances. It was Aiden Jackson's superb talent that was putting the Haas in the points playing positions they did score. It is a much improved vehicle, but not to the lengths that we thought it would be, because that's what 2021 was about for Haas. Really just to stay afloat with their main title sponsor from last season freezing the funding due to the dropping to 3rd driver of former F1 driver Nikita Mazepin, who was replaced by Kevin Magnussen at the start of the season, following all sorts of other world matters that led to Nikita Mazepin being dropped, which will probably be rather unfortunate because he never really got his chance in Formula 1. Most people would say he probably didn't really, well, not, I wouldn't say deserve it, that would be pretty harsh, but probably didn't really earn it, let's say, even though that probably just sounds harsh as well. But for Nikita Mazepin, it is rather unfortunate. We never really got to see how good he was. To be fair, you don't really know, and I think last year's Haas would have scored no points, because even on Aiden Jackson's best day, sometimes it was difficult. A lot of people do put an asterisk down to the Italian Grand Prix of 2021, but you've got to be in it to win it. And Jackson certainly did that, so take that asterisk away is what I say, because this boy is absolutely on it again. He's up to a second ahead of it, Lando Norris, and just hoping and praying, touch wood, and put it up on his commentator Turson again. I know I did that in Belgium and it didn't work, but hopefully it will now. Jackson is leading comfortably from the front again. This man's looking for redemption, and when Aiden Jackson is really on one with the car and on it, this is what you get. And if Connor Sport are looking to enter into Formula 1 next season with Aiden Jackson as the lead driver, well, really, they have not got a better choice right now, because Aiden Jackson is among his peers definitely this season in the terms of the numbers, and they are ever getting better for Aiden Jackson. Now he's getting towards the front on his best days, and I don't think you can accuse Aiden Jackson of rocket ship tax either, because the Audi certainly isn't the best on the grid. That would probably go right now maybe to the Mercedes cars, because here we are with Lewis Hamilton having a look at Mick Schumacher, and Mick Schumacher is now leading 2 men that have 8 world championships between them. Lewis Hamilton with 7, Max Verstappen with 1. Rather controversially, I guess, but they all count. Mick Schumacher, give him credit. He certainly was good here last year when he passed his teammate Lance Stroll round the outside at one point. Although a lot of people say Aiden Jackson was rather assisting in that instance. But I guess with Haas, you can take anything you can get. As we said last year, the Haas was deceptively slow. Aiden Jackson did not brake test, or at least didn't intentionally brake test to the point that he deserved a penalty. He got a black and white flag for that incident. And Max Verstappen is in no man's land right now. He's in 10th position. Lewis Hamilton has DRS ahead, but he can't pass Mick Schumacher. And this is looking very reminiscent of last year, actually, because it was Aiden Jackson leading train, trying to help Mick out, get some points after another great start. That race by Mick Schumacher. He definitely does like this place, as we have said already in this race. But now, unfortunately, 10 laps in, he has to make his first stop. And while it was fun while it lasted, let's see if Mick can get back into the points when the field filters out later. He's done his part, that's for sure. We'll have to see. And I think, was that the Audi crew coming out to receive Hakkinen? Because Aiden Jackson has already driven past. Or was that the Aston Martin crew? Hakkinen's actually just gone by into 16th place behind Mick Schumacher, as he comes out in 17th. Now, is that really where Haas are, or is that just because of pit stops? Well, we'll find out. Kevin Magnussen's still doing well in 10th place. Now he's on for a point after being promoted with his teammate having to make that pit stop. And we're expecting the medium runners to be somewhere between maybe lap 12 and lap maybe 17, 18 for their first stops. Tyre wear is not a huge issue around here. There are a couple of corners where you can wear out the tyres, but it's not really an overall concern. Charles Leclerc now needs to try and find a way past George Russell. As it stands, Max Verstappen in 8th. Maybe this would actually give Leclerc the championship lead as of now. It is going to be between Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen for the rest of the year, you feel, although I believe with Aiden Jackson winning this race, I think he could get even more closer to Carlos Sainz towards 3rd place. Aiden Jackson looking at a 3rd place finish in the constructors, in the drivers' standings for this season. A lot of people are saying if Audi can keep their cars intact, as a few more drivers make their pit stops, that promotes Mick Schumacher now up to 15th behind Hakkinen. As a couple more drivers made their pit stops. I think one of them was Lance Stroll, who now is just behind Schumacher, supposedly, according to the time tower. We need to keep an eye on this battle here, because this could be really a championship pivot moment right now. George Russell doing very well on the medium tyres, the hard tyres. Both Mercedes then taking the hard tyres to start this race. For right now, for George Russell, it's paying dividends right now. Hamilton now has a clear track, but he's got 6 seconds to try and gain on Sergio Perez in 6th place there. Fernando Alonso also doing well in 5th place. I don't think he was part of that all melee at the start. I think there was contact between Hakkinen and Russell, I want to say. Russell was kind of veering away. I'm not sure whether it was Charles Leclerc who caught him out, or maybe Aiden Jackson, but to be fair, I don't think Jackson had anything to do with it. Really look at the replays. We'll have to see it again later, as Daniel Ricciardo makes a move into 10th place ahead of Kevin Magnussen. He goes wide of the hairpin. Kevin Magnussen trying down the inside, which now turns to the outside. The Haas boys are racing today. Round the inside, this is where Mick Schumacher made his move on Lewis Hamilton earlier in this race, and he gets a bit squirrely out of that corner, but Daniel Ricciardo eventually just about holds on. The Haas boys are definitely trying to race this weekend. They've not had a lot to do in terms of racing in the pack, but today both of them are doing exceptionally well. And Lord Order at the beginning of lap 14 we're coming up to now. Aiden Jackson still leads 1.3 ahead of Lando Norris, and a fast charging Mercedes behind them. We feel the Mercedes might be better when they move to the medium tyres later on. Charles Leclerc's 4th and on course to take the championship lead, I think, if the positions stay as they are. Fernando Alonso, really an impressive performance in 5th ahead of Sergio Perez. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz now in the points after starting around the middle of the field, as Schumacher is falling. Mick Schumacher, oh no! No, Mick Schumacher! And that was him off the road. What happened there? Oh my goodness, just when it goes right for him, something else has to go wrong. And when is it going to turn for Mick Schumacher? And all that early excitement I thought at the beginning of this race, it was probably just left and gone home, really. And, that's a mistake more by Mick Schumacher, to be fair. That's a really crucial error by Mick Schumacher. I mean, he gets back on the track, he stops again because he's probably waiting for the Williams of the TV. He probably had more time than he realised to get back on the track there. But yeah, I think a very easy mistake to make around here. We had a lot of spinners in the Formula 2 races over the course of the weekend. We have one that had a red flag with Jake Hughes, who was leading the race, and the sprint race that went to Cali Meyer later in the day. So even the F1 drivers are struggling with maintaining traction on this circuit. For Mick Schumacher, it's just more appalling luck. Although, to be fair, I think that's more of his own error than the car, which is very unfortunate. Once again, he's not had the best of luck, Mick Schumacher. He's not really had the equipment much either. A lot of people... Oh, and Lando Norris is slow. George Russell has made his way up to second. Did Lando Norris fall off the track as well? He's actually fallen behind Charles Leclerc. And like we said, even the F1 drivers appear to be struggling around here. And Lando Norris has been slow. I wonder if he spun as well. We're about to get a replay. And it's not... Oh, it's in the place where Hamilton spun last year, if you remember. Hamilton spun here last year. And that's the same corner. So, again, a lot of people struggling to really keep the traction around here. There was when Schumacher spun and Norris was kind of all out of shape there as well. So that explains why Charles Leclerc got into third. And considering that the overall package best is the Ferrari, this now gives Charles Leclerc a real chance of taking the championship lead back right now. Because Charles Leclerc is in championship position to at least draw level with Max Verstappen in the championship table. But if he gets the fastest lap at any point, that will give him a 1-point lead. And that is now that Norris spin has now cleared the way for Aiden Jackson to pretty much, I would say about 95% sure, barring any mechanical issues, to win this race now. He's actually gone a very long way. He's on lap 16 of this race. I wonder if he's trying to match the hard tyre runners, particularly of Russell, who is there on the hard tyres, because now, looking at it, George Russell could be in a very good position to get back-to-back wins here, because if he stays second and he goes onto the medium tyres to end this race, Jackson will have to run the hards to guarantee getting to the end. So I wonder if Jackson is trying to eke tyres out so he doesn't lose too much time to Russell over the course of the final stint of his race. Kevin Magnussen in the pits for Haas, and he's got a long way on those tyres as well. So actually, I think this is a long way over the window, as Zhou Guan Yu had a bit of a problem there at Alfa Romeo with the right rear tyre. Not really going on quick. Mika Hakkinen has actually caught up to the back of Esteban Ocon. Mika Hakkinen has actually done really well in this stint of the race. He's just 2 positions off the points after being down at the back at the end of lap 1, thanks to car damage inflicted by George Russell, in inverted of course. Will Aiden Jackson pit this lap? He will. So, is Russell pitting? That's the question. We don't see the Mercedes mechanics out right now. No, so Russell's going on. Russell's going on. He's been told, do the opposite to Jackson. And he is going to do exactly that. Now, the Audi crew are all new faces now. A lot of this Audi crew are Connosport pit members. And that is because of the impending arrival of Connosport as an independent outfit. They're going to pretty much take over from where Project Prototype Audi era leaves off. And Audi will go back onto their roadmap to take over the Sauber outfit for 2026. Max Verstappen's coming out of the pits, and he's coming out behind Mika Hakkinen, who's done really well. He's back in the points, but I fear that he may have to stop a second time because, as we have just witnessed, the medium tyres are not going to make it to the end. Fernando Alonso's dropped to 8th. That means he's pitted. So now George Russell leads from a second to Fernando Norris. Mick Schumacher going for a pass on Nicholas Latifi up to 17th place. Or is that even him dropping to 18th, 19th there? Mick Schumacher's lost all his pace that he had early on, it seems. And George Russell. And he will go on again. So the hard tyres are paying dividends right now for George Russell, and probably Lewis Hamilton to a degree as well, because he's going on, and now he has a clear track in front of him. And he's actually kind of cutting into the lead of, well, he was, but Perez is now in the pits, along with Charles Leclerc there, also in the pits. So Mercedes now lead 1-2. George Russell by 8 seconds ahead of Hamilton. Hamilton spent most of his time trying to pass Mick Schumacher in the first stint of his race. Max Verstappen is now up to 10th. As Hakkinen does pit again. That's really unfortunate. Hakkinen has done very well to see a car in this race since the first stop. Bit of a medium speed pit stop. And there's one of the AlphaTauris in the pits again. That's Yuki Tsunoda. Now, ironically, last season, if you remember, Pierre Gasly had a very brain-lapse moment in which his engine had broken down, and instead of pulling to the side or going to the pits, he veered across the track, taking George Russell out at that point. Fortunately for George, there's no such kind of problems for him at the moment. It's pretty much going to be a clean run to his first stop. Now, how is Aiden Jackson doing? He's 7 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. I don't think he's going that much quicker than the two leaders at the moment. So that bodes well for George Russell, who will come out on the medium tyres, we suspect, following his Mercedes stop. Hamilton is already making as said stop and is on the medium tyres. Now, where does he come out? He's going to come out in all this traffic here, led by Lando Norris in 4th place. Honourable mention to Daniel Ricciardo here, who is doing a very admirable job. I think he started towards the back. He's now 11th and doing rather well. Is that Esteban Ocon passing Max Verstappen in the Alpine there? Max Verstappen is not having the triumphant return to Zandvoort that he experienced last year. He's been really in a lull this whole race, to be fair. He's still staring at the back of Lewis Hamilton, so to speak, or he will do when he finally dispatches the Esteban Ocon, if he dispatches the Esteban Ocon, really. And George Russell now from 14 seconds behind Aiden Jackson. So I don't think Jackson is really showing that much improved pace. He doesn't seem to be flying on these hard tyres, and that goes well for George Russell then. Comes into the pits. Got visor cam on George Russell. A bit slow on the front right. Now, I think George is going to come out in at least second here. He should have enough to capture Charles Leclerc. Let's have a look. He will comfortably ahead of Charles Leclerc, very comfortably, in fact, just about. If he gets out of the pits quick enough, he looked really slow going around that corner, but he has cleared Charles Leclerc. Now, we've got about 17 laps to the end of this race. George Russell has a 9-second deficit to Jackson. If he catches him at a rate of knots, then we can have a battle for the lead going to the final couple of laps. And we know how stark Aiden Jackson can defend, as was proven to some degree last season. Although he did get a black and white warning flag for that kind of brake checking somewhat of Lance Stroll. And no such issues for Jackson today. He's actually in the lead legit today. But here comes George Russell. Mercedes, so much of an improved outfit over the course of the season. It's not going to win them the championship for a 9th consecutive time. Unfortunately, they lost too much time in the early stage of the season. Lewis Hamilton still yet to win in 2022 and continue his win at every season record that Hamilton still stands. He's won it every single season of participation in the Formula 1 World Championship since 2007. Max Verstappen taking to the outside around Esteban Ocon, and this is harming his race too, because this is allowing Hamilton to race away on the medium tyres and chase after Fernando Alonso, who's only got 2 seconds to Alonso, who's in 6th. Final points playing position for Carlos Sainz, who's done very well considering he had a penalty. Grid penalty going into this race. And Mick Schumacher has fell off the cliff. He's now 6 seconds behind Nicholas Latifi. As well, that's race over for him. 4 seconds clear of Vettel. The AlphaTauris bring up the back of the pack after calamities on lap one.
caused by one AlphaTauri hitting a Williams and then inadvertently kind of braking to try and avoid it. Yuki Tsunoda misjudged that point and damaged his own front wing in the process. It might have been the other way round, actually. Well, Carlos Sainz could do Ferrari a real favour here if he could pass Max Verstappen, because it would increase the chances of Charles Leclerc taking the lead of the championship, leaving this race. And George Russell is evidently closing in on Aiden Jackson, and the Audi does not like the hard tyres, as Jackson is inherently proving. Mika Häkkinen is in 13th place, chasing Kevin Magnussen in the Haas at the moment. I'd like to see that, but the race director seems utterly focused on Aiden Jackson, and who can blame him? But he's not really lighting up the circuit as he was doing earlier. And Verstappen has finally dispatched Esteban Ocon back into 8th place. Well, Aiden Jackson, he's going to be coming under increasing pressure from his employees, let's say. His possible future employees, if you believe Toto Wolff. He's still ours. And he will not make the same mistake with Jackson that he made with Pascal Wehrlein. As we said in the feature in the sprint race in F2 yesterday. Those were Toto Wolff's comments. Of course, Pascal Wehrlein, very unfortunate not to get the Mercedes seat in 2017. And as we said at the time, now in hindsight, Bottas was a perfect choice. But it left Pascal Wehrlein out in the wilderness and then into Formula E. He did become a Formula E champion, so it was very unfortunate. But Toto Wolff vows that will not happen to Aiden Jackson. If we can get him in, we will. So Jackson is pretty much, I would say, about 90% Mercedes bound at some point. It's just a question of when. And I'm pretty much going to assume that the engine deal that was involved in getting Jackson to Audi in the first place will continue should, and we say should, Connosport take over from Project Prototype from the end of the 2022 season, as Davidoff Butler has recently stated in the Beyond the Grid podcast this week. And it was Mika Häkkinen, who will sadly not be with us for 2023. He says 2022, and that's it for Mika Häkkinen. You can probably understand it to a degree, but it has been an absolute honour to commentate on this man racing again. And I can happily say that I was alive to witness it. Or at least do it, because I have witnessed Häkkinen many times in the 90s, of course. Of course, as an avid fan of Michael Schumacher, but as I have stated before, Mika Häkkinen was the one person that I never minded beating my driver, as it were. And that was very much a rarity, because he was pretty much the only one. Maybe I could put in an honourable mention for Juan Montoya, because he was very fun to watch as well. But Mika Häkkinen, he was the only man I truly didn't mind to a degree. To all degrees, actually, in fact. Another person who's kind of fallen off, the hard tyre runners now are not experiencing the same pace they had earlier. Lando Norris is also struggling to really find the pace that he had in the opening stint of this race. He was keeping very well with Jackson in the first stint, but now all those runners that switched to the hard tyres are struggling, including Mick Schumacher down in 17th. He's passed Latifi in the Williams, and is now chasing Zhou Guan Yu in the Alfa Romeo for a very lowly 16th place at the moment. Kevin Magnussen out of the points in 12th, or 13th rather. And Häkkinen not really making any inroads on Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. Häkkinen's 4 employees ahead. George Russell, probably, you'd have to say, is maybe staring down the back of ahead to back-to-back victories for Mercedes. He's already won twice over the course of this season. He won the Austrian sprint race, if you remember, in which Max Verstappen performed a very audacious and fantastic overtaking maneuver around 2 cars round the outside on the final lap. But there has been no such moves from Verstappen today. And he's been in a bit of a lull, as we stated. There you can see Aiden Jackson in the same shot. George Russell is coming for him. Probably to lay down a marker, you'd think? Maybe. You'd have to say that if Jackson is Mercedes bound, it will be dependent on what Lewis Hamilton wants to do in terms of his future. We know that he's already penciled in till the end of 2024 at the absolute earliest. Hamilton has stated that he would very much be looking forward to racing the newer cars in 2026. So we know where Hamilton wants to be in a few years' time. But where will that be? Max Verstappen is another one that will, of course, he is contracted at Red Bull until 2028 in one of the most lucrative contracts on the grid. And right now, you have to say that Verstappen's decision has been vindicated. We heard from him at the end of 2021 that Giampiero Lampiasi, GP, his race engineer, is a huge reason why Verstappen is staying put. And he said pretty much adamantly that once GP either moves on or stops, what come what may, that's when Max Verstappen will stop as well. And he's probably, I would probably understand people who say, well, GP is probably the only one that can be thick-skinned enough to deal with Max Verstappen's kind of short temperament at times. And that is a valid statement. But it is with the love and care that a race engineer and driver in harmony, really, as those two are, even through maybe Max Verstappen's slight anger at pretty much any situation that really befalls him, that isn't really positive. But I think that's really just Max Verstappen's passion and will to win. Some people accused Sebastian Vettel of that, and well, it got him 4 world championships. So it's a thing to if it's a drive to win, I don't think you can really knock it, to be honest. It worked for Sebastian Vettel, and it looks to have worked for Max Verstappen so far this season. But of course, we have another half to play, and Charles Leclerc, as of right now, would draw level with Max Verstappen in the championship standings. This could really go to the end, which could be very interesting when we reach Abu Dhabi a year on from that rather controversial race, let's say. Max Verstappen is chasing down Fernando Alonso in the Alpine. Alonso could really grab Verstappen could really grab 7th yet. But I think this man, George Russell, with about 7 laps to go, looks to be odds on to pass Aiden Jackson. Jackson has no more pace in that car. This Audi has not favoured the hard tyres. And now just 6 to go. Jackson leads Russell by just over a second, decreasing all the time, and Jackson is still struggling with the handling at the car at times. It is a lot more planted, but sometimes still Jackson can struggle in traction. And now George Russell will have DRS in the detection zone. We really not need to be watching anyone else at the moment, because we could have a change for the lead very, very soon. Is Aiden Jackson, is the Formula 1 gods going to kind of befall him again? 2 attempts, and it looks to be a slam dunk. We need to be this is what we need to be looking at. Jackson is struggling out of corners. I think those hard tyres might have given up the ghost on Jackson's car. He's really struggling. And why have we cut away here, race director? We do not want to see this. We want to see George Russell with DRS. He's not close enough. He's not close enough. Aiden Jackson has some pace in a straight line. We know that the Audi has been very good aerodynamically this season. It's probably been the chassis that has let them down to some degree, and that's why Jackson's been struggling out of a lot of corners this year. But in the high speed zones, that Audi is somewhat a rocket ship. And as I said, I don't think you can really accuse Aiden Jackson of rocket ship tax, because today has probably proved that more than any other, to be honest, because the Audi is not the strongest of these two cars. But Aiden Jackson's supreme talent, which it is it World Championship caliber? You probably have to say on current evidence, yes. He's going for his 3rd win this season. Probably should have 4, you could argue. But engine failures is what happens. That's what Aiden Jackson said. It happens. And down the inside of the penultimate corner with George Russell. Nothing doing. And the race director does his best to pick out battles on the track. But we want to see this. But look at the Audi in a straight line. Look at that car. That car is quick in a straight line. And that is what is winning this race for Aiden Jackson right now. And Yuki Tsunoda makes a move on Nicholas Latifi, who we will not see next season, as he has been replaced, or will be replaced in 2023 by fellow Williams Academy member Logan Sargent for 2023. And the first American on the grid since, I believe, Scott Speed in 2008. I could be wrong about that. Maybe 2009 was Bourdais and Vettel, so I think it would be 2008 with Scott Speed. Very unlucky man, Scott Speed, in the Toro Rosso. Back then, they weren't really the preliminary point scorers they've become over the last few seasons. As Esteban Ocon passes Carlos Sainz, and that's why, because Carlos Sainz is on the side of the road. A Ferrari engine failure. I've not really seen a lot of this year. And does that worry the Ferrari hierarchs on the pit wall to a possible failure? Hopefully not for Charles Leclerc. Just died on him, really. And Charles Leclerc is on the verge of drawing level with Max Verstappen in the championship standings as of right now. So he'll be hoping that that doesn't befall him again. George Russell with DRS just has no answer to Aiden Jackson in a straight line. It's what gained Aiden Jackson a lot of the time in qualifying, and why he topped the all the practice sessions leading up to it. Well, we said that George Russell had a slam dunk in passing Aiden Jackson, but somehow, some way, I think Aiden Jackson's going to pull through. It's going to be that straight line speed, which the Audi has been very good at this year. Mika Häkkinen is getting closer to Daniel Ricciardo, but unfortunately, I don't think Daniel Ricciardo, I think he might be a bit of a bridge too far, as they say, for Mika Häkkinen this time around. DRS with George Russell, very, very short DRS zone. As we said, practically worthless to some degree. It's always trying to, DRS zone has been always trying to hit that blend of being overpowered but not being powerless. And right now for George Russell, it's proving powerless in both DRS zones. But that's really because of the superior straight line speed that the Audi has. And that'll probably be something that Connosport will want to inherit for sure. Connosport, Andrea O'Connor and Davidoff Butler said the Connosport car will have aspects of other cars, but will be totally their original car. They're not going to take. They're going to take the personnel assets, but not the car ones. Connosport have been building to this moment for some time. We all know that Andrea O'Connor has clearly stated at times that Formula 1 is the ultimate dream to reach in his life and the life of Connosport. But they're going to do it using their own car. They're not going to use Audi's kind of concepts, maybe. Audi will probably want to take their concepts with them into the Sauber partnership anyway, and Sauber will gladly take that as well. So Connorssport would probably have to build their own car from scratch anyway, but that's been mostly done. What we need now is an engine unit, which is probably most likely going to be Mercedes. Again, will that be because Aiden Jackson is the lead driver of that team, or will it be a deal of independence? Because we know that, as we said, Jackson is most likely Mercedes bound, and on this evidence we can see why, because we're on the final lap and Aiden Jackson is valiantly defending from George Russell. He is all over him. This has gone to the final lap. Charles Leclerc is just a bit too far behind. There is some traffic that Aiden Jackson will not want to run into. He's not had very much experience at lapping cars this year when he's led. But will Jackson hold on? Here we are into the first DRS zone. Look how much Jackson is struggling out of corners, but somehow he's keeping it pointing in the right direction. This is going to be right to the line. And Jackson squarely out of that corner. We know the Audi straight line speed is superior. Aiden Jackson calling it a comeback. He's going to do it. Aiden Jackson's going to win the Dutch Grand Prix. And the demons of Belgium have been swept away. And he has achieved redemption. But he was pushed all the way home by George Russell. And Mercedes is certainly back. Charles Leclerc takes the championship lead with the fastest lap bonus point and third.
Aiden Jackson, that is the Dutch Grand Prix, mate. Oh, you're a star. What a brilliant drive. You know what they call that, mate? They call that redemption. Yes, let's go, boys. Oh, what a car, boys. What a car. Oh, thank you. We got it. Yes.
Win number 3, I believe that is, for Audi now, following the British and Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Aiden Jackson takes win number 4 of his career at a track which probably you wouldn't have thought would favour the Audi so much, given its quite twisty nature and Aiden Jackson's somewhat problems in handling of the car. But as we said, they have become a much improved vehicle over the course of this year, and once again Aiden Jackson delivers and delivers P1. Audi win again, and where could they end up? Could they truly challenge for the title? Because Mika Hakkinen did very well today to get back to 11th, but Daniel Ricciardo was just a bit too far ahead at the end there. George Russell, Charles Leclerc takes the championship lead. Lando Norris was 4th, and Perez, Hamilton, Alonso, Verstappen, Ocon, and Daniel Ricciardo picking up the final points playing position. Man with the most unlucky race, again, it's Mick Schumacher, as Haas really have hit a slump since the British Grand Prix. And when will Mick Schumacher find his luck? Will he even be here much longer? That's probably not going to improve the mood at Haas when it comes to him. Charles Leclerc, a 1-point lead then, going into the next race, which I believe will be Monza. Max Verstappen loses the lead for the first time since the start of the season. Another mover up, Lando Norris up to 8th, and Fernando Alonso. Mika Hakkinen could still finish in the top 10 by the end of the season, because he's right on the fringes of it, ahead of, behind Valtteri Bottas. No changes in the constructors' standings. Ferrari really are the winners today, but Audi probably have edged slightly closer to Mercedes. Third isn't out of the question, but Aiden Jackson, there was no other man that wanted to win this race. No one was going to stop him because his form was impeccable. Jackson, what a win. Audi may not be here, but boy, they're going to leave us with another P1. Jackson wins again. We'll see you at Monza when Formula 1 returns. The title race is back on.